All right, so a couple announcements before we're getting started here. Like I said before, guys, welcome to the Threshold Showcase for 8th of October this week. This week we're going to have our friend Mattie here is going to be leading the Intimacy Workshop, as he's mentioned earlier. So, hey, Mattie, thank you for setting this up and walking us all through this. Before we're getting started, just a couple things. Number one, next week we are going to have our showing of To Bean or Not to Bean. That is directed by Jason Rivera and written by Marley Bauer. And we're going to have, it's pre-recorded, but we are going to have the option, like last week, to watch it here in the courtyard. So everybody here, if you guys are wanting, please feel free to come and join us in the courtyard. Let's get this community flowing again. Let's get people here alive again, in the courtyard. And it's not the easy thing to do, but honestly, I think it's the thing that we all need to do, is to be seeing each other again. So yeah, here in the courtyard, we will have we'll have the TV rig set up and everything, and we can all join each other in the courtyard as we watch this showing. Second thing, as far as reaching out to our student reps, Madison Penn and Aaron Snett, I was asking them last night, and they wanted me to share a little thing from them. So Aaron Snett and Madison Penn are our student theater ambassadors. If you have any enmity towards Adrienne, even though she is an angel incarnate, Aaron and Matt are here to hold your hand while you stop avoiding setting up that counseling appointment. And when that counseling appointment happens and some of your questions are still not answered or more arise, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, you can voluntarily zoom into Aaron and Mad's office hours to fully understand your theater arts degree or vent about your life. They may even take you out to coffee, and it may even turn into a date. Just kidding. In all seriousness, they would love to get to know you. Check out their Instagram at CSULB Theater Advising, which is what I just posted in the chat. CSULB Theater Advising on Instagram. If you guys have any questions about obviously advising, or if you just need to talk to our student ambassadors in general, yes, Aaron did write that. Cool. And as far as anything else goes, keep an eye on the CSULB Theater Hub for more audition information. I believe we have auditions. Let me double check if that's today or next week. But if it's today, then we'll let you know, obviously right now. Also, let's see, Jen White is going to be the one. Okay, I don't think we have any auditions going on today. Cool, yeah. So keep on looking at your emails from Jen White, and also the CSUB Theater up for further auditions for Thresholds coming up. We do have some more auditions coming up next week, so keep an eye on that. Talk to the student ambassadors for any questions you guys have, and also be here next week for our live in-person showing of To Bean or Not to Bean. So cool. With that being said, thank you guys all for showing up. Mattie, I am going to turn the time right over to you. Good luck.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, also just to add on to that, remember if you're a senior or expecting to graduate for next year, registration is due by the 14th. So if you want to graduate, do that.
And make sure you apply to graduate. That's coming up real soon here.
Very soon. Yeah, other than that, we can get started. Welcome to CSULB Theater Threshold. This week, we are doing an intimacy coordination workshop centering consent in the theatrical workspace. My name is Mattie Limas. You can also call me Mattie, like my Zoom thing right there. I'm a student intimacy coordinator. Before we get started, if you haven't already read the email or seen the the Instagram post, there is going to be some potentially triggering content. So I will be raising my hand like this whenever we get to that section right before, and I'll keep it up for the duration in which it is mentioned. And then when it is finished, I'll lower my hand. So feel free to do whatever you need to take care of yourself, just so you're aware, and feel free to take pauses whenever you need to. So today is going to be a presentation. It's very dense. Runtime was approximately 50 minutes. So if you need to go right at the 12:45, feel free to go. Your attendance is being counted, but feel free to stay if you want. It shouldn't be too long after the time class ends. So there's that. And then also, it's a lot of material. So I recommend, if you want to take notes, to take out a notebook and a pen, or open up a Google Doc and start taking notes, just because it's a lot of material. So I want to make sure we all have the material at the forefront of our heads. And then since it's very dense, we're just going to be going through. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat or save them for the end. And I'll also put my email in if you want to have any questions you want to send in private. But yeah, other than that, let's get started. Oh, there you go. Okay. So about me, I am a fourth-year senior majoring in theater performance. I'm in the BFA. I'm the president of Student Association of Theater Arts, and I'm also co-president of Feminist Theater Makers. Along with intimacy coordination, I also am interested and do performance. So that means acting, dancing, devising, dance, filmmaking, playwriting, and dramaturgy, and experience in all of those. I'll be working as intimacy coordinator for 2 upcoming projects, Theater Thresholds, the one about Maine, ... almost, question mark. And then BFA and MFA, student collaboration, Shakespeare medley that I'm currently working on right now. My training is with theatrical intimacy education. Last semester, they had a workshop. There was 2 sessions, one for faculty and staff and one for students. There wasn't a good turnout for students, unfortunately, last time. So I'm hoping that if you're interested today, and if any of you are interested, I'll be sending out a survey via email at the end. So fill it out if you're interested, so we can send it over to Anthony Burns, the department chair, to convince him to bring back Laura Ricard and the theatrical intimacy education, so that we can have another full workshop. Also, my training is in staging sex by Chelsea Pace and Laura Ricard, which is what this presentation is based on. This is in no way a comprehensive list of all the materials in that book, only of the first 2 chapters. I cannot, unfortunately, give you the slides because some of the material in it is copyright protected, but I can't stop you from taking screenshots. Other than that, we're ready to go. All right. So what is intimacy coordination? So an intimacy coordinator, our job is to come into a film set, a television set, a stage production, and to bring protocol, a system, and a process for staging scenes of intimacy. Now, intimacy, raising my hand now, can include nudity, intimacy, so kissing, or sexual violence. Again, for those of you who just joined, raising my hand means that there's going to be potentially triggering content. So I'll raise it when it comes up, then I'll lower it down when we finish, right? So this work is for any theater maker who is participatory in staging scenes involving intimacy, nudity, or sexual violence. So, hand down. The old approaches. So for ages, there has been no complete system for staging intimacy, only approaches and techniques for making the inevitably awkward at least somewhat easier, right? So let's look at some of the approaches that we've kind of come to know and why they don't work. So the first one is the director just saying, just kiss each other, or the kiss can be replaced by anything. So whatever the event of intimacy is, right? So let's just use an example for this case, a kiss, right? Director says, for 2 actors, they're in a scene, they have to kiss. He just says, just kiss each other, okay? So this is why they try it, right? It's quick. If the actors aren't comfortable, they would speak up, right? Wrong. So this is why it doesn't work. So many won't speak up because of the power dynamics that exist within the room, whether it be, your castmate is outside of the rehearsal, like your professional boss or something, or the director simply alone by being present has that power in the room. So many people say yes when they really feel pressure to say yes. They actually want to say no, right? Actors are reticent to say no. We're trained to say yes, and we're trained to be conscious of a reputation, to not ruin it, to be aware of not burning bridges. So we feel like we can't say no, or otherwise, we can't get cast on another show, right? That's not specific enough, right, for the needs of a production. So it can say kiss, right? But what does that mean? Does partner A kiss partner B? Does partner B kiss partner A? How long is the kiss? How short is the kiss? How intense is the kiss? How much skin contact is there, right? If you just say just kiss each other, that's in no way specific to the process, right? Also, it can just be awkward at best. invasive and boundary crossing at worst, right? So you don't want to do that, right? So that's approach number one. Second approach, the actors talk it through. So this is like the actors who are involved in this intimate scene. They are working with the director, right? And they're gonna talk it through. They're gonna try to work it through somehow. They don't have the language for it, but they're just gonna try, right? So why we try it? The actors are playing the roles, so they must have the best insight, right? And they won't suggest anything they aren't okay with, right? So this is why it doesn't work. If the actors may suggest something that they actually aren't okay with because they think that the other actor wants it or the director wants it, right? So they're gonna try to conform to what they think the other person wants when they don't want that. So, right, that's placing them in a dangerous environment for that. And that can lead to a very dangerous situation, right? Also, it narrows the distance between the actor and the character, right? It's like, is the actor wanting to kiss me or is the character wanting to kiss me? Like, and I'm saying kiss, but it can apply to anything, right? It can apply to the mention of sex. I'm raising my hand now for a possible trigger. The mention of a sexual assault in a scene, right? So it blurs the lines, and we don't want to have that happening because that deals some psychological confusion, some emotional damage, right? We don't want to have actors questioning what is real and what is fake, right? Lowering hand. Also, it may not look good. And if it doesn't look good, that'll just bring up more awkward conversations. That'll just end up making the whole process muddy and complex and not even like, not firmly grasped, right? The third old approach is that the actors talk it through over there. So the director has removed themselves from the situation because they feel like, right, I have a certain presence, a certain power, like implicit with me being the director. Therefore, I don't want to intrude, I don't want to impede, I don't want to encroach on them. So I'll just let the actors go over there and talk it through. The actors may not have any technique, but they'll figure it out, right? So this is why they try it. So we think that freedom plus privacy minus director equals a good situation, right? No, because it doesn't work, because with any act, with any set of skills, without any set of skills to fall back on, actors may make choices that they are uncomfortable with, right? They don't have the language, they don't have the vocabulary that is part of this training. So they end up making choices that are uncomfortable, invasive, right? And also, let's say a boundary has been crossed while they're talking on the side, right? Whatever that may be, right? They don't have someone to witness that. They don't have a third party witnessing that. So then therefore that causes more trouble in like rehearsal reports, filing reports if like, it gets worse than that. So we want high visibility of these situations, right? We don't want low visibility. And there's just, there's no shared vocabulary for future tweaks, right? In the absence of a director or choreographer, they may kiss and it may look okay. You may want to change it later, but how do you want to change it? Do you want to make it more passionate? Do you want to make it more tentative? What does that mean? Those are very subjective words. What you want to do is move away from subjectivity to very concrete, material, specific wordage when it comes to these things, right? So the fourth approach is show, don't tell, right? So the actors can't figure it out. Therefore, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to show them what I want, right? I want to bring in an assistant, whether it be the stage manager or assistant director, and we're just going to show them exactly what we want, right? Why did they try it? Showing the actors with the assistance of someone else, like a fight choreographer, right? Shows them exactly what you're looking for. That doesn't work for a lot of reasons, right? So first off, this crosses a bucket load of boundaries. There are so many boundaries that have been crossed by you doing that. First is there should always kind of be a divide between the director and the actor in terms of a kind of emotional distance of, you don't want to cross boundaries because there's professional boundaries and professional things in set, right? You want to treat the theatrical space, while it is artistic and free, it is a workspace, much in the same way that we treat an office space a workspace or a classroom a workspace. You don't want to it feels awkward when a teacher tries to become your friend, right? That crosses boundaries. Same thing. Director does not want to cross boundaries with the actor, right? So you don't want to mimic something so the actors can follow, right? That's just, it feels awkward and invasive. Second, some actors can't just do that. They can't see and be like, right, and then do it. Like there's going to be hiccups all over the place. So that's why that doesn't work, right? So the fifth approach is let the choreographer do it, right? Because, they kind of already deal with planning bodies and space and time. So this should be fine, right? It doesn't work because their training skills are not always translatable. Most of the time, they are not translatable. Because again, demonstration does not work. Also, sometimes we need a person who understands the importance of the word usage, right? I'm going to raise my hand because this is a very serious part. So this means a trigger warning. So be wary, right? Let's say there was a scene which we tell the story of sexual assault. You would not call that scene the R word scene, right? You wouldn't say that. Whereas a choreographer may not know how important that difference is, right? But they will say it. And saying that could trigger an actor, could trigger a stage manager, could trigger the director even. So we want to make sure that person who is choreographing this is not just a dance choreographer, but is someone who is trained in this, an intimacy coordinator, right? I'm gonna lower my hand now. Also, asking an actor to imagine the realities of certain things, again, crosses boundaries of what is real and what is fake. We don't want to have that happening, right? Number 6 is the sharing circle. So we've realized that these kind of tactics don't work. Therefore, let's just everyone sit together and talk it out. So take the time to understand everyone's relationship to the intimacy and to the material. Allows the actors to see that you understand the triggering content. It allows them to personalize, right? That does not work for many reasons. Because an actor talking about their experience in the sharing circle makes them personalize, which then, an actor personalizing intimate or violent moments in the play creates an unsafe environment. They may be conflating the two, and they may end up completely disheveled in rehearsal because they're experiencing fight or flight, right? They're triggered and they aren't feeling okay. So we don't want actors to personalize a lot of these things, right? Because at the end of the day, they're actors. They're not livers, right? They're actors. Also, sometimes, and this is the more innocent side of it, is that, people create showmances, confusion, tech week breakdowns. That can just happen because people are sharing their experiences and they're really being vulnerable past the point where they really need to be, right? And then also an actor or someone in that sharing circle may reveal trauma, right? And you may not be prepped for that, to receive that. And that them revealing that may trigger someone else. And it just creates a really horrible domino effect, right? Because you may be the most emotionally intelligent, safety certified director. That does not make you a therapist. This work, theater stuff can be very therapeutic, but it is not therapy. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that already, but just to reiterate that, it is not therapy. And so we want to make sure that actors aren't placed in situations where they feel like, they have to reveal all the stuff, right? So last one, probably one of the most egregious, I think, because I've seen it firsthand, is chemistry lessons. So this is where we actually get the actors to fall in love with each other. We tell them, I'm gonna raise my hand because this may be triggering. If there's a scene where two individuals have intercourse, where we wink, wink, nudge, nudge them and be like, go on a date, come do that and then come back and you'll be able to do the scene well, right? Because you'll have real chemistry. It'll be immediate and visceral. And it's less work for us. We don't want to work on that, right? You handle it, we'll relax. That is so bad. And I've seen this firsthand. We do not want to do that. And this applies to other things. So someone may ask, a director may ask an actor to go back and visit some wound, some deeply hurting wound, traumatic event, and ask them to call upon that. You know, as an actor, you have your own process, but as a director or a stage manager or intimacy coordinator, you want to kind of discourage that, especially within the theatrical space, because the stuff has to be repeated on multiple nights, sometimes even twice a day. That is not a safe system to be reliant on, right? So we don't want to do that, because also, this is why we don't want to do it, because sometimes passion fades. People can get together for production and then break up midway and they absolutely hate each other. And so whenever they do that scene, you could just feel uncomfortable. You can see that they don't want to do it and you don't want them to do it. It just feels awkward. So passion fades, but choreography is forever. You want to treat intimacy as choreography, not dance choreography, but choreography in the sense that these things are planned out and they are not spontaneous. Or, you know, we like to romanticize spontaneity, but when it comes to theater, we want consistent, reliable storytelling, right? Each night. So we want reliable choreography, right? Choreography is forever. Relying on chemistry is a express train to Showmanceville. I'm sure you've all seen showmances, people kissing backstage, very uncomfortable. It can get very tumultuous very fast. We don't want that. You know, and then also when reality of the scene becomes conflated with the reality of life, you know, that can be very scary, especially when, I raise my hand now for possible trigger, when there's a story of an assault, right? You don't want someone personalizing that scene and then being like shaking up the entire rest of the production. That's not a good way to take care of your actors. Take care of your actors, right? Lowering hand. This is all the old approaches, all the things that, and they come in all different forms, but these are the basic old approaches for when it comes to staging intimacy. And none of these are good, truly. So now we'll move on. And these are 3 big ideas for the kind of work that you do want to do, right? Or the kind of stuff that you want to be aware of when you do the work that takes care of your actors, right? And your team. You want to be aware of power dynamics. So the presence of certain power dynamics in the rehearsal room makes clear consent tricky. We talked about that maybe someone feels like they have to, or else their reputation's at stake. They have to, or the director will be mad at them and won't cast them again in another production. There's so much at play. So you want to be aware of the ways in which the power in the room affects people's willingness to fully consent. And we'll get to how to fully consent to things or be vocal by your boundaries and stuff like that later in the presentation. We also have to be aware of vulnerability. So even in the absence of wrongdoing, so everybody's been respectful, no one's like crossing any boundaries. Theatrical intimacy leaves actors vulnerable. It's a vulnerable space to kiss someone, to have simulated intercourse with someone on stage. It's very vulnerable, right? So mutual respect only goes so far. We need clear consent and protocol. We need rules. We need a structure, right? Also, we need attention. This is right, like intimate moments on stage need as much attention as any other moment story-wise. So for example, you're watching Romeo and Juliet and it's the balcony scene and Romeo's like, he's acting for his life. It's great, right? He's reading the verse. The iambic is beautiful. He's punching his verbs. They're really in character. And then they go in for the kiss and it's the most awkward, uncomfortable, clunky thing you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, why it was so good? And it's because maybe like a production only choreographed or set to rehearse that like the week before, right? And this often happens. They push it off until way later, right? Every moment needs attention. You know, every intimate moment, especially, it needs attention because they're not, you know, arbitrary. They tell a story, and the way we do them tells a story. So we want to be very attentive and give time to these things, right? So these are 5 basic fundamentals of this work. So we need consent from everyone at every step of the process. Someone may pull consent when earlier they agreed. That needs to be recognized, respected, and validated, right? We never ever want to coerce our actors or our team to do something that they aren't okay with, right? We're being very explicit about needing consent at every step of the process. We want to establish and normalize clear boundaries for everyone. And then we'll get to how to do that later on, right? Treat theatrical intimacy as choreography. Don't let it fall apart in front of the stage. You know, someone may have choreography as a tango. Why can't, you know, a moment where someone is having simulated intercourse, why can't that be choreographed? So that the actors aren't fumbling and trying to figure out each night, right? You want to have it choreographed so the actors feel like they are in control of their process. You never want to make your actors feel like they are out of control, right? That they don't have control over what they're doing, or they don't feel like they're secure, right? Stop putting the burden of staging scenes of intimacy on actors. Actors act, they do not direct. That is the director's job, right? Or that is the intimacy coordinator's job. Actors are doing their job as best they can, telling them to go handle it themselves, whatever, you know, if that's through chemistry lessons or the actors talk it through over there, right? That's putting a burden on them that they truly didn't sign up for and that you shouldn't place on them. Also, it gives stage managers way more to write down to better track the show when the director hands the show off to the stage manager, right? So instead of writing, you know, stage managers writing like actor A kisses actor B passionately. That's so subjective. What does that mean? There are cues, right? We need the cues, we need timing. It is better to write, for example, actor A approaches actor B at a rhythm, within 3 beats, closes the space of their chest, pulls away space from chest, then comes back in at a beat of 1, kisses lips, makes feather touch contact, pulls away, runs. That's way more specific, right? And that it may sound extra or superfluous or, you know, unnecessary, but that kind of tracking helps ensure that these moments on stage are consistent and reliable and consensual each time because they're the same thing, right? And the actors will work it through each night, what they consent to and what their boundaries are. So having that, make sure that, all right, these actors agreed to this, they're safe and they've consented, and it told the story in the right way. And it visually looked good. Aesthetically, it was a very pleasing moment, right? Like we didn't think it looked clunky, it looked like very natural and organic, right? Because it was planned, okay? So there are 2 powers in the room when we are rehearsing. There is the director. So no matter how powerless a director may feel, you may be a student director, maybe you're like your first time, you may be a veteran director, but these kind of scenes make you feel awkward, right? A director may feel like they're powerless, but their presence alone in the rehearsal room holds implicit power. Don't be afraid of it. Don't avoid it. Don't try to run away from it. Use that power to facilitate a consent-centered environment. You want to make sure that your actors feel like, right, I'm taken care of, my director's saying everything, taking care of everything. I have nothing to worry about except my job. Also, actors are professionally vulnerable. It's our job to be vulnerable. So you want to make sure that they aren't taken advantage of, right? And the second power in the room is human psychology. People conform. Being the first person to say no is the hardest. Here's another thing, the Aileen paradox, right? So I don't know if you are familiar with it. Let's say, I'll give you an example. So let's say there was a staff meeting. People are trying to decide a new meeting time. Someone suggests, let's meet on the weekends instead of weekdays, right? They said that because they think that everybody else wants to do that, but they truly don't. So then they end up doing it, right? And they end up deciding to meet on a weekend. And it turns out that no one actually wanted to meet on the weekend. They all chose to do that because they thought everybody else wanted to do it. So that's translatable to these situations where intimacy comes in play, where someone may to say that they're consenting to something or they want to do something. They don't want to do it. The other person doesn't want to do it. The director doesn't want to do it, but they feel like everybody else wants to do it, so they do it. We want clear communication, right? People need protocol. With shared behavioral language, interpretation and interaction is much easier. We don't have to interpret or figure out what the subjective meaning of a fleeting kiss means. We have a protocol, we have a language for it, right? We have a mechanics for it. And then heightened states of being affect cognition. So if you're upset by something or triggered by something, you are sent into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? You are processing the world and a heightened state of being that so much so that you lose higher social skills, right? This is, psychology. You lose your ability to set boundaries properly because you're still shaken, right? So we don't want to place actors in those situations, right? So how can this training help, right? So you want to create a culture of consent. So again, directors hold power. You want to model good behavior. This is for the directors in the group. You want to have better boundaries than you think you need. So for example, let's say it's break and all the actors are giving each other back massages, right? They're bonding, they're building rapport, right? They're being silly, young, right? You want to join in on that massage train. Don't do that. That crosses, again, let's translate it to high school. So your high school, you have a bunch of friends hanging out at recess. A teacher comes in and wants to hang out with you too. No, that's so, it crosses boundaries, crosses professional boundaries, personal boundaries, social boundaries. We don't want to have actors feeling uncomfortable, right? So for the directors, you want to make sure that you operate with the actors as if, there is a glass panel. It doesn't mean you can't be, affectionate or kind or compassionate towards them. It just means you have to be aware of the ways in which you can cross boundaries, right? And we can get into when you can drop that and be a human, right? That's outside the rehearsal room, but we'll get into that later, right? You want to normalize no's, right? You want to establish an expectation that everybody's boundaries will be respected and no one will ever be forced to or coerced into something, right? As a director, this is a good thing. You can kind of a mantra you can put, right? A mantra you can say. There is no boundary that will ever get in the way of my ability to tell a story. There is nothing that the actor has, right, that will get in the way of me being able to tell a story, because what they have to offer is perfectly valid and amazing, right? So you want to work within that space. You never want to push them past that. Their boundaries are exactly where they need to be, and you can work from there. It takes creativity, right? But that makes you a better director, okay? You want to desexualize and destigmatize the process. Staging sex doesn't need to be sexy. In the same way that staging a fight scene does not need to be scary, right? When you're staging a fight scene, it's very mechanical. You're not afraid that you're actually gonna get hit in the face, right? The same way that when staging sex, you don't need to be afraid that, this is gonna be actually like arousing of certain feelings, right? And you want to be aware of the language that you use. So let's go back to the kiss example that I used. So let's break down the mechanics of a handshake, right? So this is just a stand, right? So let's say in a moment there is a handshake. This handshake is replacing like a sex scene or a kissing scene or a nudity scene, right? So the handshake, instead of putting handshake, you can put contact between palms, medium pressure with the fingertips on the back of your partner's hands, synchronized motion up and down, and a release. That may seem like a lot. That may seem like very like mechanical and like extra, but think of how this can translate to a kiss, right? If it just says kiss, you don't know what to do. But if you say all those mechanics of how people's bodies are moving in space and time, that's more specific for the actors. The actors can work from there, right? They know what that means. They understand the mechanics of that, right? And I'm gonna raise my hand for a possibly triggering section. So let's say the characters, let's say in Spring Awakening, Melchior in the hayloft having the sex scene, right? You wouldn't say HUMP, you would say opening and closing the distance between pelvises. It's very mechanical, it's very anatomical, it's non-gendered. You're removing all the stigma and the connotations of all the words and desexualizing the process, so the actors feel like there's a distance between themselves and the scene. So they feel safe, right? In the scenes of possibly a story of a sexual assault, right? You wouldn't tell the actor struggle to get away, because that will send them into a possibly triggered mind space. You would say apply bone level contact, short, sharp breath, open the distance between the pelvises, and avoid eye contact. It's very mechanical. It's removed all the language of it. It doesn't tell them to like get into that mind space, right? It takes care of them so they don't have to internalize it. And that, because, you know, internalizing it can be very scary, right? Others, like for example, you don't want to call a scene where two individuals have intercourse, you don't want to call it the sex scene, right? You would say what it's called, Act 1, Scene 2, or the coffee shop scene. You know, you want to desexualize the words, right? You want to create a culture. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're not going to be 100% perfect, but this is about creating a culture, right? Also, this creates a replicable recipe for future reference, right? Let's say an actor has to drop out of the production, right? And that chemistry or whatever they had is lost. But if you have that recipe that you made of all those words and the mechanics of it, when a new actor comes in, they know how to do it, right? They know how to re-navigate in those boundaries and readjust if they need to, right? And then you just want to choreograph it. Intimacy on stage is choreography, right? You're asking for a passionate kiss is not going to give consistent results because the request is subjective. Boundaries are crossed very easily because of personal whims. They can happen very easily. So you want to have choreography, right? So too long, didn't read. If you want it to be repeatable, choreograph it. If you want to tell a consistent story, choreograph it. If you want to help your stage manager run the show, choreograph it. If you want happy actors, choreograph it. Okay. So these are some techniques. First is, as a director, you want to create an environment where the actors feel safe. You want to put words into space however you can. And these are not just empty platitudes, but like actual commitments of behavior, right? So for all the tools and techniques to work effectively, a few rehearsal environment tweaks may be needed to set the tone for the process, right? So you're gonna say, your boundaries are perfectly exactly where they are. You're not gonna move them, you're not gonna convince them. They will change and adapt on their own time, in their own space. And they can update you on that if they want, if they so choose. But where they are is perfectly exactly where they need to be. And I'll say it's okay if your boundaries change. Check in on boundaries with your partner, right? Also asking, may I touch you? And would you like a hug? You know, there's an assumption that theater people are naturally affectionate. We love being affectionate and touchy, right? Because we're like artists. No, like, yes, for some people, but also you can't make assumptions. It's never good to make an assumption. You always want to make sure that you have clear consent for anything, right? Asking, does that work for you? What are your thoughts on that? Or how do you feel about that, right? So instead of asking, so you're gonna grab his thigh, is that okay? In saying, is that okay? That's expecting an answer of, yes, that's okay, or no, that's not okay. And we all know that saying no is scary, right? So we're gonna wanna quickly say, yes, that's okay, right? And we're going to be awkward and uncomfortable and maybe feel like we don't actually want to do it, right? So asking them an open-ended question, emphasis on open-ended, right? Does that work for you? Does that work for me? Maybe, right? They're thinking, right? What are your thoughts on that? What do I think? How do I feel about my hand touching their thigh, right? Or how do you feel about that? How do I feel about my hand touching their thigh? What does it make me feel? You're asking them open-ended questions so that they have some time and space to think about it, and then give you a response that's most likely going to be consent informed, right? Finally, saying, let's get you some support. You want to have, when dealing with shows with sensitive material, aftercare plan, you want to have a crisis plan for situations where an actor may be distraught, triggered, or upset by the material, so much that they need space and time. They may be acting out, or maybe have pulled back in. It's important though to make sure that you are giving them resources. So if you're working on campus, we have CAPS. You're giving them access to hotlines. You're pointing them to resources like community center counseling, because you're the director, you're not the therapist. You may end up crossing some boundaries doing that, right? By trying to comfort them as a therapist would. You want to be comforting and you want to be supportive, right? But you don't want to cross that boundary and try to be a therapist. You want to get them some support outside of you, because that is not in your tool case, right? So the boundary tools, these are the actual tools, right? So we have buttons, fences, and gates. So there are two major components to all of these: a physical exercise followed by a verbal reinforcement. I won't get into the physical, well, actually I will, but there are some games we can play that people can use for buttons, but we don't have enough time for that. So if you want to do that though, email me further information on that. So first we have a button. A button is a word that indicates that the action needs to pause for a moment. Say you're going in for a kiss, you're going into a scene that's going to be potentially intimate, you're going to be nude first, right? You're going to these intimate scenes, or anywhere really. You can just say button, and that indicates a pause, that you need a moment, whether it be for water, to take a breath, to just have like a few seconds, right? And then we can restart wherever we need to go, right? And this can be applied anywhere, right? So you want to introduce this regularly, right? And then give space and ask questions, gives them more opportunities to say yes. So you want to, if you are the one who's calling button, you want to follow it up with what you need. So say I'm doing the scene, button, I need some water. I don't feel well right now. Or button, I need your breath. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to say, you don't have to tell me about your day, right? You don't have to do all of that. The person can say button, what they need. They do what they need. They come back and they start where they left off, or wherever they need to start off, where they feel comfortable with, right? It's great for, stop indulgent over explaining, helps with boundary maintenance. And also, like, you don't have to use the word button, although it's a good word. If you do choose a different word, you want to make sure it's not you want to make sure that it does not appear in the script, and that it is neutral, right? You don't want to say fire, that has a connotation. You don't want to say help, that's another connotation. You don't want to say safe word, because that has another connotation, right? And then you want to use like words like stop or pause or wait, because those have like actual rehearsal definitions, right? So that's that. Let's see. Fences. A fence is a verbal reinforcement with physically established boundaries. So I'm in a situation like you can see my body. So there's an exercise I'm going to show you after this slide that leads you through how to show fences. A fence is basically a part of the body where it is sectioned off that you don't want people touching it, right? The partner who you're working with, you don't consent to them touching you there, so therefore you show them where you don't want them touching. So let's say I don't want you touching my chest. So I would say there's a fence right here and a fence right here. I do not consent to being touched anywhere right here by someone else. There are two fences, right? And I'm verbally reinforcing it and also showing it physically, right? It's a physical boundary, right? So say my chest, I don't feel like I want any hands on it, right? Let's say there's a gate. A gate is a circumstantial opening to a fence. So let's say you're going in for a hug, right? But a hug means that two chests come together, right? You're hugging. So you would, if you're the partner B, right? You can ask, I know that there is a fence located right here on your chest, on the front of your chest. How would you feel about opening up a gate for a hug? The other person will think, yeah, I think a hug is fine. I think a hug is good because as long as it's not hands, I'm fine. If it's chest to chest, I'm fine, right? So they open up that gate. They're able to hug. That is a gate opening, right? And the important part about asking that is that you recognize the fence that exists. You indicate where it is. And then you say what the activity is, right? The hug and what the activity means. So chest to chest contact. So that it's very specific, it's not subjective. So then the other person can think, I know I have a fence there, but I think I'm willing to open up a gate for that kind of contact, right? So these are the three words you want to use. So we want to incorporate these into the rehearsal, right? So this is the actual boundary practice. So this is what to do to show the partners, right? For the first time, right? So partner A and partner B. Oh yeah, Luke, you can go.
Hey, sorry about that. Thank you. Awesome job so far, Mattie. So I'm just going to jump in real quick since we're approaching 12:50. The closing 10 has been taken. Feel free to stick around though. Of course, it's a really good workshop that Mattie's putting on right now. Yeah, just gonna want to reiterate a couple announcements. I had mentioned earlier that we have auditions coming up next week. They are having, so this is for Life and Death, our another special coming up that's going to be premiering in November. And that's going to be on Friday from 1:30 to 3:30. There will be in-person auditions here in the courtyard. So a week from today. And also they will be accepting video submissions, but the entirety of next week between Monday and Friday. As well, I just want to reiterate that all this information is available at CSOB Theater Hub on Instagram, as I posted in the chat here. So feel free to always keep an eye on that. And it's the same stuff that Jen White is email blessing all of us in the department. Furthermore, what I mentioned before, if you guys need to talk to any of our student ambassadors, our representatives, CSOB Theater Advising, you can find them on Instagram there as well as I'm posting down there. And then just the third announcement I want to reiterate upon. Next week, we are having a showing of a Threshold to Being or Not to Being, directed by Jason Rivera, written by Marley Bauer, here in the courtyard. You guys feel free to meet up here in the courtyard, and we can all actually be, a community again. We can, get everything going, and we will all be watching that together here. It will be live streamed as Zoom as well, but please, I urge you, if you can, show up in person. It's what we need. If we're ever going to get back into the theater for, actual theatrical productions in person. So feel free to show up next week. That's about it for me. Thank you guys so much. Mattie, I'm going to turn the time back over to you. Yeah, feel free to leave if you need to. You can email me for further information. Luke, can you put my email in the chat? The email.limas@matthew.14@gmail.com. Remember, there's a lot of dots and stuff in it. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Yeah, I'll put it right now. So if you want to leave, but you do want to keep learning about this, you can email me. I'll put it right here. At gmail.com. So email me there if you want to have questions. But feel free to stick around if you want to keep learning. There's only a few more slides, I promise. I'm not going to keep you here forever. Yeah, let's get back into it. So partners begin facing each other in an open, neutral body position. This can be done sitting or standing. So there's partner A, partner B, right? You can see right there in the first picture. Partner A, I'll show you two, will begin at the top of their head and will begin showing by touching everywhere that they are giving their partner permission to touch today. This is done without speaking. It is done with wiping, sliding, or smoothing motions slowly. Be conscious of the back of the body, that you want to include it,
or not include it, whatever your boundaries are. And if you can't like reach, say like the back, I can't reach right here, right? So I would point to there and I'd say like, you can touch there. Well, I wouldn't say, but I'd point, right? So you're sliding it slowly. You don't want to pat because pat can get confusing. You're sliding, wiping, or smoothing motions. This is everywhere that you consent to your partner touching you today, right? Partner A then asks partner B, would it work for me to take your hands? If they get a yes, partner A then takes partner B's hands and brings them onto partner A's body, touching everywhere that A gave B to touch. So that's in the second picture right there, right? The individual on the right is guiding partner B's hands over the body, right? If partner, so they're sliding it. So this is partner B's hands, this is partner A's hand, this is the body. They're sliding it, right? They're showing them where they can touch, where they give permission to touch. This is all done without words, right? If partner B says no, partner B can hover their hands over their partner A's hand, so they don't actually have to touch, they can just hover. Or they can follow, so partner A is leading, and then partner B is following close behind, right? And then partner B is allowed to say button at any time to stop and reset, right? Say partner A feels comfortable with their thigh being touched, right? But partner B doesn't want to touch their thigh. They don't feel like they don't want to do that, right? So they would stop and say button. They would say what they need. They would remove somewhere else that they feel comfortable touching, that partner A consents to, and then start from there, right? So both people's consent is put into play at the whole time, right? After this, without talking, they are allowed to talk. Partner B, the one who was shown the fences, right? Shown the boundaries, tells A what their boundaries are, what they saw the boundaries to be. So I do this, I slide, I like jump over here. So then partner B is like, oh, I saw a fence around your armpit, right? Partner A, who the one who was showing, right, would be like, yes, that was correct. Or they would be, actually, no, that was a mistake. And then shows them again that they consent, right? And then we just tell each other their fences, right? And where they feel they want to be touched, or that they consent to be touched today, right? They flip it, repeats the same for partner A, and partner B does it, partner A follows, right? Oh, there you go. You do not need to do, actually, that's it, yeah. You do not need to do the boundary check-in at every rehearsal. It does only take like 3 minutes at the most. But if you don't want to do that, you can just do a fence check-in. So you can just talk like, yes, my boundaries last time, or my fences last time were my armpits and my thighs. But today I feel like they have opened. Or it could be, actually, I have added more fences since last rehearsal. There's a fence around my feet, right? So they're able to check in and see where the fences are. They can do the boundary practice if they want to, but a check-in is like a quick way to just be like, verbalize where their fences are, right? This is a placeholder. One of my favorite parts of this technique is, so a placeholder is a high five, literally. So two hands coming together, right? It is a tool to replace a would-be intimate moment, right? So whether that be kissing, simulated sex, it could be for any reason. The moment is not yet choreographed. The actor is not feeling well. Maybe they're sick. They don't want to kiss their partner. There's not enough time. There's not enough time to do a check-in or a boundary practice yet. So they just do this, right? And the point is for that is that it desexualizes the process. Let's see. And it signifies three things, right? Something is supposed to go here, right? So let's see, yeah. So a scene blocked without intimacy can feel disrupted when you get back to it later, right? This keeps it fresh in everyone's minds that there is something getting plugged in here and lets them know that you haven't forgotten about it, right? It can be very discombobulating when like you're in rehearsal and, oh wow, we forgot about the kiss. How did we forget about the kiss, right? So you have that placeholder there to remind you, right? Whatever goes here isn't a big deal, right? So one of the challenges of staging intimacy is that so many actors have really bad over sexualized experiences, right? A high five is intentionally unsexy, right? A casual gesture, and it lets the actors know that whatever happens here won't be weird, won't be invasive. Actors can get serious or as goofy as they want about their high five. What matters is that it is not drenched in psychologically serious or sexual language. Rather than starting the scene, calling hold, reminding the actors that the big, currently on stage and mysterious intimate moment happens there, then asking them to restart the scene, the actors merely high five and keep playing the scene, right? And thirdly, placeholders are always available in rehearsal, right? Whether it's a week before tech, it's early in the process, it's there. It's always available to them in the way that a button is, right? You can always put a placeholder. Sometimes even like you're doing the scene, you don't tell the partner that like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. You could just do it, and the other partner knows. Oh, right, it's placeholder. We'll do that today, right? And they don't have to explain it. They don't have to stop. You don't have to do anything. It continues, right? And they're in character, right? And the way that we call line in character, you can do a placeholder in character. You can call button in character, right? It's not to disrupt the process, right? This is derolling. This is another technique for emotional boundaries. So versions of derolling appear in several acting pedagogies already, notably in works of Auguste Boal. It helps maintain separation between truth of the scene and the reality of real life, right? We talked about how we don't want to conflate those. In derolling, the actor states as the character what they are doing, both physically and emotionally, what they're saying or what lines of text they're speaking, maybe even how they're feeling, right? And then they say, but as the actor, and then they say that the actor has been doing physically, emotionally, and verbally, right? So it's a way to create distance so they don't feel like they're, there's a conflation, right? So here's an example of derolling might sound like, right? In my experience as my character, I am shoving you and abusing you and manipulating you and making you afraid because I am seeking revenge. And I'm calling you hateful names. But as the actor, I'm doing my choreography. I'm opening and closing the distance. I'm seeking eye contact, and I'm speaking the words of the playwright, and I would never say these things to you in real life. So it can be done as a partnered exercise, or it can be done solo. The important thing is that it's done openly, and it's openly communicated to help create distance, right? Why is this helpful? It's helpful to directors to take a step back and say, to tell a story of this play, we're doing X, Y, and Z, right? Or I'm raising my hand now for potentially triggering content. It helps get some distance from violent, traumatic, or aggressive content in a scene of sexual assault. Doing that helps reassure you that you're safe. This is not the actor doing this. Well, the actor doesn't think the thoughts or feel the feelings of the character. This is the character doing this, not the actor. There's a distance, right? That distance and separation is important, right? Also, let's say they're kissing and it looks great and it's very romantic. But then people start thinking that they actually have feelings for each other, right? You don't want showmances typically. You can't stop them. You can't say no, but like, they can get muddy, right? So it helps prevent situations where people are confused about their feelings or having like mixed signals, and helps create a distance, right? Well, last few slides, I promise. Additional boundaries: never step in to demonstrate an intimate moment for an actor. You never want to, kiss a stage manager or AD as an example, right? That's not good. Maintaining physical distance as director or intimacy coordinator is essential to this work. Again, remember that glass panel example. You want to avoid miming sexual gestures or demonstrating the choreography on an assistant, and stick to clear, descriptive, desexualized language. Then there's solidarity, work time, and social time. So collective acts of solidarity are not appropriate during rehearsals of intimacy, nudity, or sexual violence. What does that mean? You would be surprised the amount of times when an actor has to get nude on stage and they feel uncomfortable or nervous. The director's like, I see you, I feel your struggle, and then gets naked themselves so that they feel like they're being seen. That is never appropriate, right? That crosses so many boundaries. Where did that come out from? What? I'm so confused, right? So the act of solidarity are fine for, other situations, but not for sensitive situations like this, right? Also, pre-existing personal and professional relationships may be present in a cast or a company. So people may be dating already, they may be like a husband and wife, a boss and a worker. So you want to establish boundaries of when company members are to treat each other as coworkers versus lovers, friends, and spouses, right? Boundary breakers, what to do when you perceive that a boundary has been crossed. If you're an actor, if you feel that incident cannot be resolved without intervention, share what you've seen or experienced with an SM, AD, director, intimacy coordinator. I'd recommend, regardless, to report it anyways, not to get the partner in trouble, but to just let them know that that was part of that happened, right? So they have something to put in the rehearsal report so that they're aware if it happens again, right? If you're the director, head of a production team, or intimacy coordinator, you want to be direct, clarify where the boundaries are were renegotiated without you knowing. So sometimes actors can renegotiate boundaries without you knowing. Maybe they go to lunch, talk about boundaries, they changed. You didn't see that happen. So when you see it happen in the scene, you're like, wait, that wasn't agreed, right? And then you go and you ask to clarify, right? If that isn't the case and there actually was a boundary crossing, if you noticed it, talk to the person directly. If a third party tells you, talk to the person whose boundary was crossed, right? Because they've been dealing with that for some time now, right? Offer the boundary practice again as a way to remedy that issue. And then if the crossing becomes regular, consider recasting, honestly. Even if you remove that scene or change the scene or just drop it, that person who is doing that fundamentally is not able to respect people's boundaries, is not a good member of the team, right? Last slide. Okay. Making mistakes. What to do when you are the person who has crossed the boundary, right? So there's 4 steps to this. 1, own up to your mistakes. What did you do? Example, I touched you without asking, right? You're saying what happened. You're validating their experiences. You're not making them feel like they made a mistake or anything. You're saying exactly what happened. You sexualized language, remember? Well, you're saying what happened, right? So second is you apologize. This is important because you're speaking, you really feel remorseful, right? And then want to thank them, and this can come in the form of thank you for helping me become more aware of touch in my practice. I'm working on this and I appreciate you raising my awareness. It can sound corny, cheesy, whatever, but right? And then figure out the way forward, whether that's, take a step back and create a full cast discussion, talk to a higher up to get training, right? There is a format. You never want to ignore it and pretend it never happened. Sometimes that can be worse than the original offense itself, right? So you want to make sure that you're systematic about how you apologize to your team or to your cast member, right? All right. Thank you. The 24 of you all, I love you. Everyone else too, I love them too. They were all here. But thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, email me in my email right there. It's a hefty email, I'm sorry. I'm open to talking for a little bit if you have any questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Mattie, I've got a meeting I'm going to get to, so I'm going to make you the host if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you again for all the work that you put into this today. You did a great job on it.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone wants to talk about anything? Let me look through the comments real quick.